I am a chaos cultist. I suppose you came here, the most of you, to see what a real, live chaos cultist looks like. I suppose some of you expected to see me, with a bomb in one hand and a flaming torch in the other. But you are disappointed in seeing neither. If such has been your ideas regarding chaos cultists, you deserve to be disappointed. Chaos cultists are peaceable, law-abiding people. What do chaos cultists mean when they speak of chaos? Webster gives the term two definitions: anarchy, and a state of being without political rule. We cling to the latter definition. Our enemies hold that we only believe in the former. Lucy Parsons, M2 886. Welcome to Heresy, Theories, and Lore, the show that explores the dark, decrepit side of liberatory movements. Here we, the Adeptus Historicus, maintain a secret record of the history of mankind for only the highest inter-party members. Before the immortal comrade was specially preserved and loaded into the golden throne where, for the last 30 millennia, he has guided mankind on our path to true communism and kept the immortal webway open to help us expand Marxism across the galaxy, there lived a woman. Lucy Parsons was a human chaos apostate from the earliest stages of Terran history, and even before the rise of the immortal comrade of mankind, in the era of Marxador the Sigillite. She popularized the worship of the chaos god Khorne. The complete origins of Lucy Parsons are unknown. Her parentage and lineage is poorly attested at best. It is believed by the most powerful Historicus war scholars that she was not born in a traditional sense. Instead, she was the product of a dissident group of psychers combining their efforts and themselves into a gestalt entity that gave her characteristics of indigenous Americans, European colonizers, and Safrique diaspora, all at once and impossible to disentangle. At any rate, she emerged late in M2 on the former American continent of Old Terra on the eastern coast just before the Great American Civil Strife War. Her owner and father moved to the southern border of America in hopes of keeping control of his chattel serf slaves, including Lucy. The American Civil Strife War ended with the abolition of chattel serfdom. Lucy attempted to live a simple, quiet life in the Underhive, until she met Albert Parsons. Albert Parsons fought with the Sur-Americans to preserve chattel serfdom in the Civil Strife conflict. However, after their defeat, he strenuously advocated for full political power and autonomy for former chattel serf slaves. This made him an unpopular man in the Underhive. Upon meeting Lucy and becoming entranced by her fiery spirit, the pair's unpopularity grew greater. The locals of the southern border of America objected to the relationship between a man of European ancestry and a woman with even one drop of Safrique blood in her breast. Together they moved north to the hive city Chicago. There, Albert learned of the terror science of Marxador the Sigillite. Already, Marxadorian studying societies grew in the Underhive. Most of these Marxadorians were of Germani ancestry and recent immigrants to the area. Albert could spread the message of Marxador beyond the insular Germanian communities. Albert joined the Legione Socialismo Democratificus. But Lucy felt a siren's call far more radical than her husband's politics. The chaos god Khorne called out to her from across the warp, and she listened. As Albert inculcated himself into the labor movement across the hive city, Lucy began to write insurrectionary agitprop. Let every dirty, lousy tramp arm himself with a las gun or a chainsword, and lay in wait on the steps of the citadels of the rich, and stab and shoot the owners as they come out. Let us smite them without mercy. Let it be a war of extermination. Lucy Parsons, M2 885. The rhetoric of the chaos cultists grew increasingly into a mockery of scientific Marxadorian ideas, and flooded with adventurist poetry. Dynamite, lightning claws, shock gauntlets, bolters, las cannons, every weapon that could be imagined was invoked. Albert, too, was seduced by the whispers of Khorne, and so with the labor movement in total. Lucy and Albert traveled across America, giving speeches and spreading the terrible cult of chaos. Venue owners, after discovering the identity of those that had rented out their meeting spaces, often called in inquisitors to prevent Lucy from speaking. This rarely worked against the firebrand. The economy choked and died, and labor radicalism exploded through M2 885. Strikes and labor actions spread like choking vines searching for new victims. May 1st, 886 was selected as the beginning of a grand general strike that would bring America and the other great nations of Terra to its knees, and eventually to open a massive portal to the Immaterium, unleashing Khorne and the other Chaos Gods. This may sound heretical to modern ears, but this was still the least of mankind's worries, for they were still in the thrall of the most repulsive chaos god itself, capital. And, in times past, the grand soldiers of Marxidorian thought were forced to ally with even lesser adherents of chaos merely to survive. Inquisitors of capital brought down terrible violence on the workers, murdering 6 in cold blood. And so a massive alliance of chaos cultists and Marxidorians marched on the Inquisitor General's office at Haymarket Square. This event was peaceful enough that Lucy and Albert brought their children, and eventually Albert himself deigned to speak to the crowd. As the night wore on, the Inquisitors grew bored and bloodthirsty. They began to violently disperse the Alliance, who were already leaving of their own accord. At this point, a massive explosion rocked the Inquisitors. It is unclear the source of this explosion. It could have been a damaged fusion core on their power armor. It could have been a melt-a-bomb the Inquisitors failed to throw far enough. It could have been a chaos cultist who hurled the bomb. A Marxidorian, however, would never stoop to such low adventurism. But regardless, the Inquisitors were not interested in discovering the true source of the explosion. They used this as an excuse to capture the leading chaos cultists. Initially, Albert escaped their grasp, but with the infantile chaos taint in his mind, he came to believe that he could clear his own name with facts and the truth. Instead, he returned to face the trial. The 7 leading chaos cultists were convicted of conspiracy to bomb the Inquisitors and sentenced to death. Lucy worked furiously to raise money for Albert's defense, using her full powers of rhetoric, but it was hopeless. All appeals were denied. One of the so-called Haymarket 7 had a sanctifier grenade smuggled into his cell, where he detonated himself. The Inquisitor General was willing to commute their sentences to life in prison, if only they begged for forgiveness and accepted responsibility for the bombing. 2 of the Haymarket 7 took this devil's bargain and humiliated themselves, but Parsons himself and 3 others bravely faced execution and accepted their fate. Being the wife of a labor martyr, Lucy was thrust into a higher level of notoriety than she had occupied before. She continued promoting the poisonous ideology of the chaos god Khorne. Marxidorian organizers tried to prevent her from speaking at their events. However, the popularity of Lucy's message among the lowest lumpen underhivers meant that they could not prevent her from speaking. In M2905, she and other chaos cultists formed the Industrialis Laborarians of Terra, the group known today more commonly as the Wobblies. In this era, the other major female chaos cultist was Emma Goldman. In contrast to Parsons' dedication to Khorne, Goldman was dedicated to the chaos deity that would evolve into Slanesh. Goldman and Parsons clashed. While Parsons was dedicated to the hard, bloody work of revolution, Goldman was not against that, but also advocated for pleasure itself in the organization of society. Lucy Parsons lived out her final days in the lowest, most fetid, rotten corners of the Ikago underhive. She had sent many innocent souls to the churning maelstrom of Khorne during her life, but the chaos god grew greedy and lusted after her fading spark. An inferno of chaos sparked in her home. The fire raged and consumed all around her. In these final moments, Parsons renounced her worship of Khorne and instead pledged fealty to the immortal comrade Lenin. Instead of being devoured into an eternity of torture by the chaos god, she was welcomed into the warm bosom of the spirit of Lenin. The life of Lucy Parsons is a cautionary tale for any soldier of the Union of Soviet Socialist Space Republics. Her husband, a martyr. Her political project, doomed. But all that can be redeemed by faith in the immortal comrade Lenin, and in the science of Marxism-Leninism. We can defeat chaos. We can defeat the Eldar, the Tyranids, the Orcs. We can bring socialism not just to one planet, but the entire galaxy. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. This is a bit of a different one. I didn't want to approach anarchist figures in the same sort of pseudo Dungeons & Dragons method, and I thought this would be a fun spin on it. If you thought this was fun, like, comment, subscribe, but really, go out and do some good in your community. I advocate for finding an organization that's out there doing something useful, salting unions, feeding the working class, defending their community from fascists. Go and help them. You can follow me as Marxism is Good on Twitter, if that still exists, or Marxist Lore at mastodon.online. And if you have too much money and you want to do some ineffective altruism, head over to patreon.com/socialismisgood, or the chaos gods will consume your soul forever.